Anthony.
Brother Hobart, how we doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. How you doing?
Doing good, sir. Appreciate you for having me back, man. For real.
I appreciate you for coming on. Welcome back. Happy Thursday, is it?
Yeah. New Year's.
New Year's. How was your New Year's?
It was cool, man. It was cool. I'm trying to think of what I did. I'm not like a great rememberer, for real. New Year's is actually my anniversary. Me and my wife. Been together for like 11 years on New Year's.
Wow.
But we didn't do anything special this time around at all. We went to Napa last weekend, so that was kind of like our fake New Year, like anniversary celebration kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's got to be tricky, right? Because you have like, it's like a kid who has got his birth. Like my grandpa's got his birthday on Christmas, so it's like, do we go out and do the big thing with all the homies? Do we do the intimate thing to recognize this day for the two of us? Or, I could see that being, almost like setting aside another night or making that decision.
So, I mean, we didn't do anything the day of, for real. We just kicked it at the house and ordered some food in and kicked it. But this year so far, I think we're like 13 days in or something like that. This year so far has been cool, man. Real interesting. I feel like I'm starting to. Just these last 13 years have framed a lot of things for me, like in life. So it's kind of cool to see. You know what I'm saying? Been a cool year so far, man.
That's
I
dope,
can't
man.
complain.
I mean, that's impressive just to have been in a relationship that long. I think my longest is 3 years. So, like, to me, that's a whole deeper dive, to spend that amount of time with. You're you're physically a different person. I think almost 2 times over now, right? Every 7 years, every cell in your body is completely different. So.
That's facts. I'm going to use that on the next year. Like, look, I'm a different person.
Exactly.
Second time around.
This is how much I love you, that this new version of me loves the new version of you.
That's a good one. I was thinking about using it for like deviously. not so much that way, but I'm going to use it that way too, though. But I was thinking of, I don't know, like, I'm different. You got to treat me different today. I'm a whole different person.
There you go. New Anthony wants this, and
exactly,
this. Yeah.
Exactly. We need to renegotiate since this is the second time I've been a new person since we've been together.
Right.
But yeah, cool, man. It's been cool, man. Beautiful thing. I'm genuinely appreciate my relationship. And it's been good to celebrate 11 years for sure.
Hell yeah. Congratulations.
Appreciate it, brother.
She's been pretty active with you, right? And working and helping you build this brand and develop.
Behind the scenes for sure. Like my wife is like, she's like the best editor in the world. You know what I'm saying? For me, like she has a hypercritical lens when it comes to certain things. Like she's really good at seeing. Like she's very likes what she doesn't like. Doesn't, you know what I'm saying? Like very understands exactly what she doesn't like. So she actually was one of the editors for my book. But just everything. It could be anything. Like, what do you think about this flyer? Or like, what do you think about this design? And she has a very keen opinion.
Tastemaker.
Yeah, in a lot of ways. She's always like, she cares about how things look, and how they, kind of feel. So I definitely lean on her when it comes to that. Like, I'm not opposite. Like, I don't, I'm not like a very like, I'm not worried about pleasing people aesthetically. You know what I'm saying? Like, as much. And I'm not to say I don't enjoy being aesthetically pleased. I think we all do, but that's just not my thing. And it's a trip because I have a clothing brand, but I'm not, right. I don't care about that necessarily. So she's definitely been super helpful. So it's kind of like, it's an oxymoron. Like I want my clothes to look cool though.
She's
like,
the yin to your yang, or the yang to your yin.
For sure.
I mean, that's so important. I think a lot of partnerships tend to have that dynamic where you have like the kind of linear executor, directional, focused mind that's kind of like, that's like executing on ideas. But then you also need that like free floating, creative, dreamer, aesthetic person that's going to be like, dressing everything up. And you see it a lot in business. You'll have 2 partners that are, you have those complementary strengths. And I mean, that's what a value, even just to have someone who will give you that honest opinion. Like, this is whack. Like, we all need that person who's like, this is whack.
Good try, but it didn't work, man. Yeah. Let it go.
You see the artists who don't have that. And it's like, ooh, that's rough.
And you see the people you see people that don't have that socially either, right? Like certain people, when they get to a certain level of like fame, it's like, bro, who did you run this by before you decided to say this or to make that decision or to do that, make that artistic decision or whatever the case is.
Or maybe you start out with that, but then you attain that level of success to where you're surrounded by yes men.
Facts.
We've seen a lot of people fall victim to suddenly you don't have those people in your life anymore who are telling you like, not yet, you got to rethink it or you got to redevelop it.
Facts.
I get it because it's, I mean, I can see how easy it would be after like you've made your way on your own. Like there is a certain element of needing to really just trust your vision. I don't care what people tell me. I believe in this. Therefore I'm going to do it. And if you've done that and made a career out of that, like I could see it being just increasingly compelling to just follow your vision and say fuck you to everybody who disagrees. But I think that's where collaboration is so important. You know, having those different minds. A lot of like the best ideas, certainly in like the music videos that I've made, are like ideas where on set someone had this idea and like my first instinct was to like shut them down. Like that's stupid, like waste of time. But almost like as a skill, I've worked on trying to like kind of change that loop inside of me so that like, I'm going to say yes. I'm going to give this person the opportunity to have their idea. We'll see in post whether it makes the final cut or not.
Right.
And I've been surprised at like having that mindset. A, the person's going to work extra hard because they feel like they're invested now.
They're empowered. Yeah.
But then B, like, I don't know everything. And a lot of times like these ideas are stuff that I didn't even think of. And it actually really helps the final product overall.
Yeah, now we'll be surprised how often we're wrong, number one.
Yeah.
How much we don't know, how many blind spots we have. But I think you're right. I think what you're speaking to is like, just like the importance of collaboration in business and creatively, I think is like we see a lot of examples of that happening. Like even just thinking of music, like hip hop, for example, specifically, but music in general. Music is not as good when it's one person doing everything, like unless we're talking about Prince. Like you need people to do different things and to collaborate and to contribute to a project for it to really, be as beautiful, the beautiful level of art that we all love and at this point are accustomed to. But I don't think that gets as much spotlight, like how important it is to collaborate. I don't think that it gets as much spotlight or airtime as it probably should. Like an example for me, like recently, so for the book drop, and me and you talked about this a little bit, but when we should introduce the book. I don't know how you want to do it, but for the book,
let's introduce the book.
Okay, well I explain this. I'll just get through this. I get through this thought, and then we'll introduce the book
for sure.
But we talked about it a little bit. Like for the book drop, I did like a mini documentary style like introduction to the book, and it was a real cool experience for me because I've never had multiple people working on one like a project that I created at the same time, right? Like I feel like I've kind of been a one-man show in a lot of different ways, but that was the first time that people were lending their creative energy to what I created, and I think that like the result of that was super duper dope for me and super eye-opening. More than anything, I learned so much through the process, and I wouldn't trade that process for anything, right? And I think there is that push and pull, like, nah, this is my vision. This is how I want it. And like, all right, bro, I understand your vision. It's not doable. Like, I really do camera work, or I'm really do production, or I really do direction. Like, just trust what I got going on too. So
how validating is that though? Like, I'm wondering, like, if you had that moment where you took a step back and were able to be like, look at all these creators who are like believing in my vision or my, like, that must have felt so validating to have other people excited about your idea.
Yeah, nah, it was cool, bro. And I didn't realize it until like we got like to the day of execution. Like we did all the like pre-production meetings and stuff like that. But once we got there that day and everybody was there, I realized like, dang, number one, super grateful that these people think enough about me and or my idea and or my business to want to be involved in this particular project. Number two, it was cool because I realized that everybody that was a part of it were people that I've grown up with, right? People I've been knowing since like 8 years old. So like the people, I don't want to go too much into. Well, I'll just go. We'll just go into it. Whatever
you like.
But the people the publishers for my book, they're two twins. Their name is Channing and Chelsea Moreland, and I've been knowing them since I was 8 years old. And I've been knowing the person that directed my mini doc since like 10 years old, or like we were children. I've been knowing the producer since elementary school, the camera people. Like it's just when we were on set that day, I realized like, wow, I've been knowing all of you my whole life, and all of them didn't necessarily know each other all that time. There was some overlap where like a lot of other people, a lot of them also knew each other for a long time, but it was just cool. Like, wow, like y'all are really the people that are a part of this next step in my journey. And that was powerful, man. That really like blew me away, and I really enjoyed and appreciated that opportunity, right? And like, my business is based on economics and finances, so it was also cool to be able to realize and understand like, wow, this book that I created is helping other people eat. You know what I'm saying? Like they're able to make money because of this idea that I created.
Yeah.
So that's like the real cool thing for me, is like another portion that was like real cool for me as well.
That's great, man. I mean, I think you hit on a topic that I've been sitting with a lot lately too, which is like, I almost feel a responsibility. Like this is something that really inspires me as I continue to build my brand. It's like, I want to be a success so that I can get my fellow artists paid.
Facts.
You know what I mean? Like to me, success looks like me being able to, I was just talking about this with my boy Eli yesterday. Like I know so many incredibly talented musicians who play a lot of gigs and make great music and are so allergic to like the online world for good reason. It's like anti their aesthetic, but like that's also where a lot of the money is. And I'm trying to build this container, this platform where I can like hire someone to make me a song where I have like need of the art. And I have, you kind of get to be that bridge of like, I am connected to people that have resources and I can be like someone that is funneling that to people in my community. And I've built like my brand and my platform in a way so that we can all still be genuine, be our true selves, make art that we love, and, be fairly compensated for it. And it sounds like you got to do a bit of that with this project. And I mean, hearing you talk, it's like, how delightful is that to like look around and realize that you're a peer, that you're like have a seat at a table with all these creatives, and to me, that feeling of camaraderie of like being on the team, having my ideas taken seriously, getting to collaborate with other talented artists, like that's nirvana, that's bliss,
Nah, facts, bro. And the crazy thing is, like, I didn't realize it till the time. And I'm trying to pick on what you just said that really sparked me. I think I might have lost my thought, but you said something that was the container, right?
Yeah.
So like, I think that what you're talking about and what you're doing and creating is like super important. It's that container. It's the structure, right? Because no matter how everything has to run through something, right? So if you think of like electricity, there's wires, right? And I don't know, I'm not an electrical genius by any means, right? But there's wires that hold that current. And because the wires hold the current, you could run electricity anywhere, right? When before it was just, it was fire. Like, so there was no electricity. We couldn't contain it. We didn't have it contained, and we couldn't control it therefore. And I don't mean control in a bad way, but we couldn't use it. Yeah. So I think that that's a worthy thing that you're doing, is creating a container, because the power is really the electricity. The power is really the art that's going to populate your container. And that art still needs a container, right? Yeah. Every good idea needs to be packaged, or it's just a good idea. So I think that's a real cool thing, a real cool way that you're looking at it. And I did get a chance to experience that a little bit, which was super cool. And again, not necessarily purposely, but like everything I was doing was purposeful, but it wasn't on purpose. I didn't realize what was going to come from it. But yeah, bro, that's definitely like the goal, and should be the what we're looking as builders, people that want to build stuff. That's what we should be looking to build, things that could hold other people's creative genius and platform and display other people's creative genius. That's it, bro.
Yeah,
straight up.
Well, I mean, you've done the work on your own of developing yourself as a producer, someone who creates. That's one thing that I've learned through the process of doing this podcast is like, you stick to it and you keep doing it and people start to see you as a doer. Like there's a guy that does stuff, you know, and that puts you in a position then to take advantage of the opportunities that inevitably rise. You know, it's like you've put yourself in a position where other people in your community are seeing you as someone that can execute, can make things happen. You built something for yourself. There's a lot of people with dreams of building, and executing is kind of the, you know, that's that X factor that's where the discipline and the practice comes in. And the fact that, you know, that you're seen as that now allows you to have, I mean, that's kind of where I think all of us creatives want to be, is that place where people are reaching out to us to make stuff. Like where we're, cause so much on the front end is pushing, trying to get opportunities, trying to hone your craft, trying to put yourself in those places. And, you know, we really can only rely on ourselves in those moments to get through that. But I do think there's an eventual moment where you kind of start that perpetual motion machine of energy around you, to where these opportunities start to come up more and more. You know, I just got a call today from a friend who referred their friend and wants me to do a music video. And like, that feels so good to get an organic lead just out of the blue, where like someone thought enough of my art and thought enough of me to put my name someone else's ear. Now that person's reaching out to me like, hey, I want to pay you to make art for me. Like,
bro, that's
it.
Now that's it right there, bro. Like you said, like being known as a doer and an executor pays dividends over time. And we talked a little bit earlier about just putting reps up. Like just I gotta put my reps in anything, whatever it is you're doing, because whether it's a success, whether it's a miss or a fail, like a success or a failure, a miss or a make, the fact that you put the reps in put you in that category of a doer. You know what I'm saying? So I love that. And that inspires me. That makes me want to do more. Like, dang, you're right, bro. Like, it's a couple things on my mind that I want to do, I'm going to do. But it's really just a matter of just executing and letting I don't know the language you use, but that energy of execution, right? It's like, I don't know the laws of physics either, but it's like
self-perpetuating.
Yeah, exactly. Like whatever, an object in motion stays in motion, right? So I think that's the idea of like putting energy behind your movement, putting energy in what you have going on. And we'll see friction at different points in time, but as long as you're pushing in that direction, doing things, and cool things at that, then you know what I'm saying. That's how you get to a place where you're just, at this point, you're just fielding opportunities as opposed to like knocking on doors and trying to figure it out. And I see that happening for me at this point in life, where I am able to field some opportunities. It's just like, so far the opportunities that I'm fielding are they haven't been that profitable yet. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like most of what I've gotten been off of like, this is what I've created for myself. But I would love for it to be a situation where it's like, hey, I love what you've created for yourself. I love the container that you created. Can you help me strategize on this container that I want to create? That's, I think, where ultimately where I want to be at.
Like a consultant type role?
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's tough, bro, because so many things that we want to do are undefined. Like so many talents and skill sets that we have are really undefined. So yeah, we could call it a consultant, but the way I'm looking at it now is like I'm a business strategist. Like I'm a community builder. Those are the community organizer. That's what I want to do, and that's what I want to be. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, as I'm doing it for myself, you know, obviously, like, we reap the benefits of doing it for ourselves, but how you know you kind of made it, and this is based on just hearing what you just said, but how you know you've made it and you've done an excellent job at doing it for yourself is when people reach out to you like, hey, I've seen what you've built. I would love to, you know, for you to help me build that for myself or for my team, right? So, like, that's another great point that, you know what I'm saying, that you inspired that out of me to like, yeah, bro, that's what I want.
It's like, I remember being in my early 20s, and I used to do this all the time, but like sitting down and trying to like really get to the root of what I wanted out of life, what I want out of a career, what I want, you know, the easy American answer is money.
Yeah.
A lot of people like stop there. You know, I never really had a lot, so it was always something that was like fun to fantasize about. But when I also didn't really trust like money for the sake of money, because I saw a lot of rich people that were really unhappy. And I remember one day I did that thought exercise, and I had this vision of like, you know, pick X artist, right? Like Jay-Z or, you know, or some comedian or something, right? And I'm thinking about like what their daily work schedule is like, you know, and I think about like Jay-Z going to a meeting where people are pitching him on ways to make him money. Right. And like, so I would think about that. Like, that's kind of what I want my life to be like, where like my work is going and having these meetings with people who want to do stuff with me. And then the rest of the time I get to just do fun stuff. Like that's actually making money too. That, like, that was like a realization that I had where it's like, to me, that's the success, is that you're like in collaboration, that you're in a system that is feeding you energetically, where other people who have spent time developing their own thing are trying to align themselves with you because you've built value into whatever it is you're doing. And I think that speaks to what you were just saying, just that, you know, that's kind of what, you know, that's what we have to keep pushing for. Eventually the dream is that it will take off on its own, you know, and that like, I mean, even this week I've spent, you know, on one hand, haven't worked a bunch where I'm getting paid, but when I actually take inventory, I've spent like so many hours this week, like developing projects, doing creative work, building stuff that will lead to something maybe. And I was thinking about this yesterday. Like I did that. I was taking inventory of everything that I've got done this week. Like, man, but that didn't even feel like work. That was just fun, you know? And like, I'm getting closer and closer, like every month, every week, to like having more of my time taken up with that stuff. And there's this deep intuition that like eventually I'll be able to support myself doing that. And it won't have to feel like, you know, growing up in this country, in this culture, you know, and this, I sent you that podcast earlier this week. I got super fired up on. They were talking about how like, you know, you look at little kids and they don't know that work is bad. Like to them, learning is great. Learning is fun. They're so into it. And they found that like it right around, I think it's third grade is where that switch flips. And it's directly coincides with when they institute public testing in schools.
Wow. And
it goes from like, hey, we're like doing fun, creative stuff and that kids are into, to suddenly like, you need to sit down, you need to shut up, and you need to like remember these facts or else this school is going to lose money. You know, it kind of puts the teachers at this adversarial position with their students. So like, you know, I think that that's changing. There are people that are seeking to change the system, to bring about, you know, this guy that I was listening to on this podcast he's a high school teacher, and he's creating these programs that are, he like sits down to his students. He's like, what are you guys into? What do you love? You know, oh, I want to be an Instagram influencer. Okay. Like, have you made any videos?
Right.
No, I haven't. He's like, well, let's make a video. Like, why don't you go do that? If you really love it, go make it. And like trying to build that pattern back into the student's life, which is kind of what we're doing later in life now. Like at age in my 30s has been about like, I've had so many bad work experiences. I had this negative connotation with producing stuff that's held me back. And so I've had to train my mind to think about producing not as a negative, like drudgery, but something to be excited about, you know, something that's easy. It's easy to make this stuff.
Right.
So I don't have to struggle with my own psychology about doing it. I can like just do what's fun. And that, and learning that the more like, it kind of doesn't matter what that is. If you're in flow and you're loving it and you're doing it, you keep doing it long enough, you're going to get better. And, you know, thankfully with this culture that we're living in right now, where there's so many people dedicated to helping people be successful. Like I think there's just ever increasing, you know, directions and avenues for people to find whatever weird little thing they're doing that they've gotten competent at. There is like an audience for it, or there is an appetite for it. You know?
There's a use case for it. There's a use case for almost everything that people have a skill set for. But one thing before I even respond, that's a tweet, bro. Is like just hustling, like the idea of like I want to grow or I want to hustle until people are pitching me ways that they can help make me money. Like that's a whole tweet.
Finance Friday, put it out, baby.
Yeah, that's a whole tweet right there. That's like that's definitely like a whole category of like that's a whole different category. Like once you reach that stage, like in a lot of ways you made it from a financial perspective. In a lot of ways you could, you know what I'm saying, create what your social life looks like, what your work life balance looks like, all those types of things. So that's dope. That's a dope.
Put it on a t-shirt, man.
That's a dope vision, bro. That's a dope vision right there. But
well,
bro.
also
I'm into that.
I think, how many stories do you hear of like someone who is like fabulously successful who still feels like a failure? You know, like success isn't like there's this idea of material success. But I'm more concerned with like, how do I feel successful right now?
Facts.
Like that's a muscle that we have to continue to train.
Facts.
I want my feeling successful muscle to be fucking jacked because I'm one of these people, the way my mind works, if I feel successful, I want to do more. That feeds me. That inspires me. If I feel like a failure, then I kind of shut down.
Yeah.
And that's where the work is failing. Like everybody says, we got to keep failing. That's when you learn. But I do think that like anybody who's setting off on a creative path can be working on feeling like a success, on celebrating their small victories, building that mental circuitry so that like, you know, when you are able to check in and take note when you get to those moments where you're like, look where I am right now. Like
facts.
I wrote a book and I got all these people I grew up with on, you know, that I've known since the playground days, you know, and they're all executing on my dream right now.
Right.
You know?
Nah, for real, bro. And something else you said earlier that was like interesting and inspiring, and also like exactly where I'm at in my life. Like I put in a lot of hours every single week working on all kinds of different things. You know what I'm saying? It's things that I enjoy. It's things that I feel like are connected to my purpose or my passions. So it doesn't feel like work, but it is tough as a creator to feel successful. I feel like there's only certain point, like it's hard to either feel successful or express your success all the time. You know what I'm saying? And I guess not so much express, because I'm more so thinking about internally and for self, but we do need to be checking in with ourselves and making sure that we highlight what we have done that is good or positive. Because I can't tell you, bro, how many projects that I've started over the past like couple years, right, that didn't end up being like, you know, we just decided that this is not the project. Like we're not going to continue doing this for whatever reason. But what I've learned starting all of those projects and being eager to just build something and do something, like I've learned so much in doing those things that whether that particular project was a success or a failure, it was ultimately still a success because of what you walk away with.
Yeah.
And
experience is a reward into itself.
Facts. And then just even hearing you talk about you know, training children and stuff like that. Like that's what it's about for children too, is like giving them experience, like giving them exposure to new things and new ideas, and then giving them experiences that they can glean from, that they could go learn, that they could learn from, and that they could use in their everyday lives. I think is the most powerful thing possible.
Hell yeah, man. And I want to give a shout out, because I feel like people who might be interested in what we were just talking about, I want to give them want to give them the information. If you guys want to find that conversation that I was just referencing, the podcast is called FI, which is short for Financial Independence. And it's episode 87, Education Through Innovation, with Don Wettrick. That's Wettrick. And Don is just an incredible communicator, and like I got so fucking inspired listening to that conversation, because this guy is like identified this real issue in our education system, which really hasn't changed since like the time when we're just training people to be in factories. The new American landscape, like those jobs aren't coming back, and we are not really manufacturing a lot of things in this country. But one thing which we are still like number one in the world at is creating content. We're really entertaining people. We make stuff that people find enthralling. And I think that, you know, as Don says in the conversation, like he doesn't think that everybody should be entrepreneurs, but he does believe that everybody should have an entrepreneurial mindset. And I think that's something that we could certainly be training our young ones in from an early age. Like he's got he had like a certain number of his students like graduating high school with patents.
Oh, that's dope.
With businesses. Like he's got all these kids starting podcasts as teenagers, and they're 16. I'm 34 getting started with this. But like, imagine if you were 16, imagine if by the time you were 22, you had already done 3 podcasts.
Right.
You know, and you're like, have already built this network out, because everyone in your high school class, let's say you got 10 people in your high school class that are also doing their projects. So you're coming up with a network. You know, it's like, how valuable is that in this new landscape? Whatever it is you want to do, you know, to be building these skills and tools of collaboration, working on projects together. And, you know, I think that there's a real opportunity to build this stuff isn't expensive to build into programs. Like the resources are there, the internet's there, YouTube is there. Like, you know, it's really just, you know, empowering students, you know, because for so many years they're being told, no, you can't do it the way you want. You got to do it our way. You know, Don shares this moment that he had in a classroom where he scheduled out like it, you know, similar to how Google had their 20% time. You know, if you heard about this, how Google like famously, gave their employees 20% of their time to just work on whatever they want to work on. Like many of their most successful innovations have come out of that time. So this high school teacher decided to do that with his class. And he's like, all right, like, here you go. Like, and he sits down in the class. He's like, all right, this is time for you got to design a project. It can be whatever you want. It could be a video game review thing if you're really into video games or whatever. And he said all the students just sat there looking at him. They're like, what do we do? And he's like, what do you want to do?
Right.
But I don't know how to do that. So in that moment, he realized, like, we've trained these kids to sit down and be silent and wait for orders. But in the business world and in the modern economy, that's exactly what, like, we don't want. Those skills are not serving people. People need to be able to be self-starters. People need to be able to, like, you know, take risks and, you know, kind of execute on their ideas. And
This was tough about what you just said, bro. You're correct, right? We need to empower students. But the hard part is, how do unempowered adults empower children?
That's a great point.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think that as a society now, like, it's important to start at the bottom, but as a society right now, we have to start rethinking how we train all people, not just kids. Yeah. Because I guess what's sparking that idea for me is, like, I wrote a children's book, right? So my children's book is called B is for Black Wealth, for those that are listening in.
Hold it up. Let's get it on
man.
the camera.
Check it out, man.
It's a beautiful cover.
Yeah, appreciate it. Dope artist from the Bahamas that worked on it. Lamaro Smith is his name.
Okay.
Super talented cat. But I wrote a children's book, or I set out to write a children's book. It was based on a concept by my publishers, Channing and Chelsea Moreland. They have a book called B is for Black Girl. They also have a book called B is for Black Boy. So it's basically like the ABCs of Black girl culture is what they call it, right? So what I created, so we were collaborating on another project. She asked me if I could help write for a project that they were working on around business. And, I was like, yeah, like I help for sure. I've been on them my whole life. Like we have a good relationship. Her daughter is my niece. Like, so, it's family. I was like, yeah, I for sure do it. So we started working on it and we just came to an impasse where it was like, all right, we're probably not going to produce this particular project. So, we after we let that one rest, I ended up coming back to her like, hey, why don't we just populate your existing concept with content around business and entrepreneurship? And she thought it was a great idea, and she was like, dope, let's do it, right? So it started off as a children's ABC book, but once I started writing it, a lot of the information, I realized adults don't even have this information. So in its final form, I realized that it's a children's book because there are some ABCs and there's some things that are rhythmic and some things that, you know what I'm saying, like are can help expose children to some of these business terms that they've never been exposed to. But but deeper than that, there's a lot of good information that adults have not been exposed to and that adults haven't had access to, right? So I realized that it's a tool to help empower not only children but adults, like the people that are in their houses, which the people that are in their households are going to have more influence on them than anybody else anyway. So let's empower them and let's give them tools. So that's what made me that's why I was thinking about what you said around like empowering children. Like, yeah, we do need to empower children and we need to figure out ways to empower adults at the same time. So
hell yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah,
man.
so I'm grateful that I was able to create something and not on purpose. Like I was moving in purpose, but what the result was not on purpose. But I was able to create something that I believe is going to empower children, is going to empower adults, is going to empower families, and give people a tool and a resource and an artifact in the home that you could reference for anything having to do with business, anything having to do with ownership, anything having to do with independence, anything having to do with wealth building, anything having to do with group economics. So all of these things that are buzzwords, but we don't always flesh them all the way out for people to understand what they really mean and what it takes to attain them.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful to have created something that can help people, not only expose people, but help people with the tool to attainment, which is the goal. Yeah,
man. Hell yeah. Fuck yeah, bro. I see you like the passion and the excitement for you really believe in this. And I think that's beautiful.
Yeah.
And what a great way, to introduce not only children to the basics of financial literacy, but also it's such a non-threatening way to give adults, maybe the person reading it is intimidated by the world of finance or the world of economics, right? Those words can be really scary and kind of like threatening almost,
Facts.
Especially when this kind of gets into our last conversation on the podcast, but when you're also looking at it through the lens of, the like institutional racism and the structure that has been stacked against the Black community in this country. But to be able to introduce this to people, I mean, there's nothing less threatening than a children's book, right?
Right.
And so it's not devious, but it's very clever that you're wrapping this up in this container so that, not only, a parent can be reading this to their kid, but they're also getting a certain level of literacy or familiarity with those terms. You're almost like building, like, it's almost like training wheels or light weights. If you just start lifting out, if you go for the heavy, the heavy dumbbells, that might be too much for you. But even starting with these basic terms, gaining familiarity with these words. I haven't read the book yet, but like, I'm assuming that, what you're doing in teaching these kids, I can see how this will be a vehicle for people, to gain a basic familiarity with the concepts that maybe otherwise would have remained, kind of beyond where they're willing to go,
or where they're able to go, or where they've had access to, right? And I think that's exactly what I have. that has been created, right? That's what has been created. And I can't say I created it because obviously I have publishers, I have editors, I have people that did the artwork. And it wasn't my intention. Like what you said, where it's like, oh, we're going to create a children's book, but it's actually going to be for adults to learn as well. Like that was never my intention. My intention was to make something dope that happened to be a children's book, and making it as dope as I possibly could. I realized like, wow, everybody could learn from this. And for me, it's not just terms. It's about like the way that we need to shift our mindset around economics and finances as a Black community specifically. And I could have made a book called, B is for building wealth, right? And people would have loved it, and people wouldn't have batted an eye at it because, it's in line with what I've been talking about, teaching. It's in line with my brand. It would have been great. However, I think that the people that have lacked the most access, and we talked about this, is the Black community. So why not do something for them specifically? And the book is just one tool. Like now that we have this tool, it's set to be in the world in February, late mid-February, early March. But once this tool is in the world, the goal is, and at the same time, we're going to build other tools that support this tool. So it's not just, it's not just a book. You know what I'm saying? Like we could make the words from the book, come to life in other ways if we could create other tools that make sense, that help people, around this particular concept.
Yeah, that was something I wanted to ask you, it being a book that you wrote with the Black community in mind. What would you say to like people from other communities who may be interested in it as well? Is there truth? Is there lessons to be gained for people that aren't from that community?
Absolutely. I feel like, truth is truth. So there is no truth for one people that's not truth for another person or other people, if that makes sense, right? Yeah. When you strip it down to its bare bones, any idea or any concept, the meat of the bear, like the meat in there is useful for anybody. You understand what I'm saying? So like the way that I explained it when I first started a video series called Black Wealth Principles. But the way I explained it is like two things. The more specific a story is, the more widely, the more that a wide audience could gain from it. Okay. Right? And the proof of that for me, I have two pieces of proof for that. The first proof is Black Panther. Black Panther is a very specific story, but it broke every single record. You know what I'm saying? When it comes to movies that there are, because that very specific story, that very Afrocentric story, that very like going deep into different cultures and deep into this idea of Afrofuturism, like what we want our world to look like and feel like, and going deep had more of an impact on more people than trying to go wide. And even like I don't know what the other Marvel movies are called, where there's a million superheroes in there, right? So like, that's my first example. My second example is you look at the Bible. The Bible is the most read book of all time. And it's about one man, essentially, right? But it's about one people for sure over thousands of years. And it's a very specific book, but it's had the most impact. You know what I'm saying? In my opinion, it's had the most impact, more impact than any other book that was ever written, because it was about a specific people. It was about a specific person. It was about a specific God. And now everybody gets to eat off of that one story. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's the same way that I see B is for Black Wealth, or anything having to do with building the Black community. I think it's everybody's.
B is for Black Wealth, the new Bible.
No, please, no, don't get me struck down, bro. Don't get me struck down at all.
I'm just kidding.
No,
I'm kidding.
It's a funny one, but no thanks. Yeah. But so to the way that,
sorry, I
you good, bro. the way that I see it, the way that I see it is, in America, it's everybody's job to help empower each other first off, right? But are most vulnerable. And in America, the most, the most vulnerable people, the people that have been hurt the most, the people that have had the most extracted from them, is Black people, Native Americans as well, but Black people, Black people is holds up a big space as far as that's concerned, right? Not negating what Native Americans been through. They've all their resources have been stripped as well, right?
Yeah.
But next to them, Black people, You know what I'm saying? And I'm not comparing or whatever, but just speaking of black people, have experienced the most extraction of labor, the most extraction of resources, the most like just being boxed out the most from resources. So it should be everybody's business to figure out how we could deal with this American problem.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So for that reason, I think we should all read the book. And not only for that reason, also because there's stuff in here that you could take back to your community, stuff you could take back to your children, stuff you could take back to your friends and family members that will help you as an individual, no matter who you are.
Yeah.
And also to get us thinking how we could be of service to each other.
I love that. I think that like what I'm hearing you say, and this is kind of the way that my brain was putting it together too, as I listened to you talk, you know, I think that this could be a tool for anybody that is feeling in a state of disempowerment. And that can be a really personal state. Like when you're in that mindset, it's easy to feel like your story is unique or like I'm behind everybody else. I'm held back. I've been repressed. I've been, you know, and so I see in you know, in another way of putting maybe what you just said, but this being a tool for anybody who's in that space, right, where they're trying to figure out how to better their situation. And one of the beautiful gifts, as you've just described, that the Black community has had to offer the world is being this group of people that have experienced some of the worst things that life can throw at you, and have had the strength to persevere and succeed despite that. And that's such, I mean, I know I've been inspired in my life by so many of those stories from the Black community of people who, despite all the odds, believed in themselves, pushed through, achieved, you know? So I think that like, it's beautiful that, that this community would be offering like the world these gifts, you know, like in having to struggle through some of the most difficult hardships. It's something that we all can learn from because, you know, everybody's struggles are subjective. It feels like it's the hardest thing when it's your thing that you're struggling against. Right. And having this example of struggle and perseverance and success is something that no matter where you're from or who you are can be honored and can be celebrated and can be incredibly inspiring, you know? So I think that's beautiful. I think you're spot on with what you're saying. Yeah.
And just in hearing you talk just now, you gave me another great example of a very specific story that the more specific the story is, the more people that it could touch. When you look at hip hop music, you know what I'm saying? You look at hip hop, you look at rap. These are stories that start off as stories of struggle and stories of, like you said, perseverance and stories of making something out of nothing and stories of creativity. And when offered to the world, everybody said, dang, I could gain something for however they said it. They signaled I could gain something from that. And now hip hop is the #1 genre in the whole world because of that. So yeah, bro, I appreciate that's my third analogy. I'm gonna start using that for sure.
I mean, it brings me back to like, I remember being like 15 years old and listening to Tupac and like, I wasn't even thinking about race. Like it was, he was talking to me, you know,
that's
like the stories he was telling felt so representative of what I was going through as like a young man, you know, and trying to make sense of the world. And, you know, the specifics aside, I wasn't like gangbanging and, you know, maybe I drank some Alizé, but like, you know, like, it was still like as a person, as a human, as a feeling, caring, thinking being. Yeah. I was, you know, that was an artist who really inspired me by telling these stories and generated such an interest in the community that he was coming from. I think that like that is one of the, you know, one of the great contributions, maybe the greatest contribution of the Black community in our culture has been art, and has been the art that makes everybody feel so strong.
Let me reframe that for you though. I think that because right before you said that, the thought that came to my mind is that's what art does though. Yeah. Art communicates across, art penetrates the heart and it communicates across difference for sure. And I think that the most beautiful thing that we can leave each other, and the most beautiful, the biggest contribution that we could have like to society for each other is art. At the end of the day, like, it's all about creation. Like, from the beginning, you know, again, another reference to the Bible.
Yeah.
God said, "Let there be light." He created light. He created the world. He created the heavens and the earth, right? And that is our nature. He created, you know, mankind, right? He created us. So if that's the first thing that happened in that book, then the number one, like, one of our number one responsibilities and one of our number one needs is to create as well in his image. Does that make sense?
Makes total sense.
So that's also,
maybe art was too narrow of a term. I mean, like, honest expression.
It's the same. It's the same thing. It's one and the same, though,
totally,
right?
Totally. No, I'm just saying, to clarify. That's what I meant. You know, and I think that, like,
you on point, bro.
I lost my train of thought. What was I trying to say?
Nah, but you're on point, though. Like, art. So, an interesting thing, fact about myself: I've never considered myself an artist. I've maybe never even said out of my mouth and owned my artistry, like the fact I'm an artist, right? Until I got this book in my hand, and I realized, like, wow, I'm really an artist. But again, that goes to show that we don't always have the language, and we don't always fit into a certain category that makes sense. Like, I can't sing, dance, rap, whistle, like anything artistic. I my whole life I've already known, like, I can't do that. I'm an athlete. But my whole life I've been a creative thinker. I've been a visionary. I've been a wordsmith. I've been somebody that could, you know what I'm saying, that could create, you know what I'm saying, realities for myself based on what I said and what I did. And that's art, but I've never seen that platformed or understood the platforms that
you never defined that to yourself.
It's never, I've never, and society, because society never defined it for me, right? And I guess that's not society's job. But I say that to say that art and creativity are one and the same. Like, creation and art are like,
they're synonymous.
Either they're synonymous or they're so closely related that they are. You know what I'm saying?
You just reminded me what I wanted to say too.
Talk about it.
So, like, just to finish the point that I was trying to make, like, about, you know, growing up and seeing, like, this incredible contribution from the Black community to our culture through art, through creativity, through honest expression of hardship and perseverance. I think that as a society, we're beginning to wake up to the intrinsic value of that contribution. Because, I mean, I've heard this said from members of the community, from my friends, that there is this, like, kind of feeling like the contributions that have been made, of which you can't overstate the effect of Black culture on American society. It's you look everywhere. It doesn't matter what you're into, like, that has been affected by it. As a society, I think we're just starting to wake up to what the value of that contribution is. You know, as a society, traditionally, we've, like, really held up, you know, this kind of, like, traditional 9-to-5 corporate structured life as being synonymous with success and with value in our culture. And these institutions, like, when I hear people talk about, like, institutionalized racism or institutionalized oppression, to me, it's like, my understanding of that is that we've designed these systems that really privilege one type of person to succeed in. And if you don't fit in that system, if you don't know how to say the words, if you don't dress the right way, if you don't conduct yourself in this quote unquote professional manner, then it's very difficult to be successful in those contexts. And I think that what this gift is, this true contribution of these you know, disadvantaged communities, or for lack of a better term, we're beginning to wake up that, like, there's so much value and opportunity in these cultures that has been ignored by this dominant culture that we've built. That culture is starting to fragment and collapse. And the solutions, I think, all come from these from indigenous communities, from Black communities, from every community really. But, you know, growing up as someone who, you know, we were definitely on the poverty line. We definitely, as we talked about in the last episode, like I saw myself less, I couldn't really see myself in that like old white guy, you know, sitting in a corporate office vision of success. To me, it was always like the things that were most important and valuable to me were these other cultural contributions, like that, getting into this certain music or watching basketball or, you know, like, those were always the people that I looked up to and that I was inspired by and that I was trying to model myself after, you know, and I think that is kind of part of the American goal or the American dream, is that, you know, people like yourself are working to generate and gift to the larger society this deeper understanding of what value looks like, of what we should be valuing as a society, of what types of work should be given value, you know, and we're seeing that change, and it's beautiful. And I think that like, it's not all going in one direction. I think we're all learning from each other, and, you know, integrating these ideas, but so much of your brand is bringing the truth and wisdom of your community and your culture into a field that has like historically been dominated by a different culture, but you're doing it in your way. And there's a lot of opportunity for, you know, for truth and for, you know, the deep cultural wisdom to be communicated to people that may not otherwise be exposed to it. I think that's super commendable and like spot on with what we need to be doing as a society.
No, I appreciate that, bro. And it's a lot of good gems in what you just said, for sure. And to speak to your last point, as far as like bringing a different perspective, right? Like that's my goal, is to bring a different perspective to this idea of business, finance, investing, etc., right? Some of the principles are some of the principles, right? But my differentiator, and what I've always seen my differentiator being in this space of like quote unquote financial literacy, or in this space of like, to me, I just consider myself like a public entrepreneur. I'm just an entrepreneur that's doing it in public. I'm just an entrepreneur that is only, you know what I'm saying? I'm only eating what I create, off of what I create. I'm not, you know, I'm not accepting, at this point, I'm not saying I never will accept a corporate check, right? But right now I'm not accepting a corporate check. So it's a different reality for that person. So I say that, but I say that to say that in my lane, what I've realized for people that are in the financial literacy space, people that are in the business space, is that we're always hyper-focused on self, and we're not focused enough on the collective, meaning like, how could what I create help other people eat as well? Yeah. So for me, I'm hyper-focused in that direction. I'm hyper-focused on the collective. And if you read my book, like, it's not just the definition of cash flow is, like, we talk about the definition of cash flow, but we also talk about the importance of taking our excess money and investing it back into our community. And another shortcoming I think that we've had, or another parameter, or I don't want to say parameter, but another structure that we've set up in our community, is that the only thing that to give back is you have to go through this like nonprofit structure, or it's just about giving things away to people, charity. Charity, like just giving away material things that, you know, that they could use once and they could never use again. But when really giving back is investing in things that'll grow. Like if I give a child a meal, like they'll eat, but that's not going to help them grow over the long term. What's going to help them grow is, you know, teaching them how to, you know, like they say, you teach somebody how to catch a fish, they'll eat for a lifetime, versus giving them a fish. It's a big difference. How do you create a sustainable, like how do you feed yourself in a sustainable way, right? Whether that's growing food, or whether that's, you know what I'm saying, making money so you can go buy your own food. Yeah. But that's the shift that I'm trying to create, is this idea, is to take this traditional system, this financial system, and let's turn it on its head, and let's figure out how we could do for more of us as opposed to less of us.
Turning me into we, flipping that M upside down.
Facts, absolutely. And I just don't see it in this space. I just don't.
What what do you credit, like where do you think you got that perspective from, like that set of values that you just described? Like where did that come from?
Yeah, like so for me it came from my mother. It came directly from my mother, but it also came from a special set of circumstances, right? So like most of my life, me and my older sister, like we always lived together, right? And my mother, sometimes we live with my mother, but sometimes we live with other families, right? And other families had a hand in raising us, and we lived in other households. So we had to learn how to take care of each other, number one, and number two, we had to learn how to fit in to these different ecosystems and help and give and receive and, you know, figure out what we needed, but also figure out how we could help other people get what they needed. And I think that there was like a lot of cool values that we learned from doing that. So like at the beginning of my life, I would say to like from like 5 years old to like 8 or 12-ish, it was spent like, you know, in and out of different people's homes, and we really were taken care of by the community. Mm-hmm. But after that, once I was like 12, 13, like junior high school, my mom was a lot more stable. And the same way that we depended on community to help take care of us, I seen my mom be that for so many other people. So I seen her taking all types of people into her house, children, adults, and otherwise, and bring them into our ecosystem and help them figure out how they could contribute to what we had going on, how we could contribute to them. So for me, it's really been a set of circumstances, and I think my mom's heart that has allowed me to have this perspective that I could start to share with other people. Now that, you know, once you get past the pain, you know what I'm saying? It was hard growing up in other people. Like, it was tough. It wasn't always cool. But once you get past the pain and look at the beauty of your experience, now you have something to turn around and give to other people.
Yeah.
So that's where I think that perspective came from.
I feel you. That's beautiful. And it's kind of right what I was, you know, that's a prime example of what I was just talking about, just of a perspective that we so badly need as a society. Like, we've gotten so boxed in, you know, it's almost like this, you know, this individualized family unit that's shut off from the community at large. I'm looking around my neighborhood right now at all these individual houses, and I know maybe 10% of the people on my block, and I've been trying to know the people on my block, but in our society right now, we're like, everybody feels so fractured and divided. And I think that, for me personally, like, you know, same story, different set of circumstances, but, you know, also coming from a family situation where we needed to lean on the community as well. Like, our childhood was immeasurably improved by the fact that we had a community to exist in. And my mom took advantage of that as well. And I love what you said about paying it forward and about, you know, having this role model in your mom and watching her provide that same support to others. I think it's almost like when we get into the poverty mindset, which so many people fall victim to, you like lose sight that actually that the support is actually a gift, not only to the person, but to yourself. You know, that's really increasing your own sense of worth and your own sense of value, not in a prideful way, but in like it genuinely feels good to help people. It makes you feel better about who you are, and it makes you able to connect with other people. And like we've been talking about this whole conversation, the potential for learning new truths, it's endless, right? You don't know what you're going to learn from the person that you're helping out.
Facts. And that's, it's like the idea of like energy can't be created or destroyed. Like, it just takes on different, or matter can't be created or destroyed. It just takes on different forms. I think that's kind of how love operates too. It's like it can't be created or destroyed. Like, it just, you know, it just takes on different forms. So like, what form can we show love in, right? Like, what part of our lives is a love letter to our community? What part of our lives is dedicated to the people that we care about? What part of our lives is dedicated to the larger society? What part of our lives is dedicated to who, right? To whom it may concern. I think it's cool to identify that. And that's why I appreciated this book so much. And a lot, like this chapter of my life a little bit, is because it's been dedicated to my parents. Like, number one is just honoring them. And then directly after that, it's been dedicated to my community, to the Black community specifically, because I have to make a contribution there because of what has been given to me. And not saying that this is where my contribution stops for my parents or for my community, but saying that I've been able to really mark those, mark those seasons where it's like, all right, this is about honoring my parents. All right, this one is about honoring or honoring and giving to the Black community. And, it's cool. Like, and I think the book encapsulates that. Not to say I won't keep building towards it, but I think it encapsulates that. Like, that's what this was.
Is it? Can we get a little taste of it?
What you want, man? What you want some? What you want, man?
I want some of this wisdom we've been talking about.
Want me to spit some bars out the book?
Spit some bars at me, baby.
I'm down.
And maybe we could. I don't know. I don't want to give away too much, or wherever you feel comfortable with. But I'd love to give the people that are watching right now also just like a view of what the pages look like, and maybe you can read a page or something.
So this is the first two pages, like the A and the B, right?
Okay.
So you can see the artwork is beautiful, man. Like I said, a cat named Lamar Smith out of the Bahamas.
I'm gonna just make sure that we can get this.
Yeah, I could scoot it closer if you need me to.
Can you like hold it up, just in front of your chest?
Yeah.
There we go.
You can see it.
Yeah. I just wanted to I can punch in and get that shot closer for people.
Cool.
So they can see it, but
Cool.
Yeah.
So the way that the book is structured, like there's the ABCs where we're just looking to expose children to the ABCs, right? Of wealth. And then on the other side, we actually define some of these terms because some of the terms are going to be new for the people, right? So what I do is I do the ABCs, or the ABC part, the A's and the B's, and then from there I go into some of the definitions, right?
Beautiful. And
it's considered an encyclopedia for a children's encyclopedia. So we decided to call it that intentionally because it's not like a storybook. It's not like we're gonna read it from start to finish. It's more so like we're gonna expose ourselves to these terms and we're gonna learn as we as we see fit, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
is this book meant for parents to read to their kids or for kids to read themselves?
I think that it's meant for. I think it's a family book. I think it's more so meant for parents to read to their children. I also believe that like people from like the 7th grade to like the 9th grade time, like right in there, I think that there will be people in that age range that pick this book up and can't put it down, like that they'll lock in on the terms and like the perspective and all those things associated with the book. And mind you, this is a sample, so all of this is not absolutely final, right?
Gotcha.
There's another edit that went in, that things will be slightly different, but it's the same book for the most part.
This is the exclusive collector's edition.
Yeah. There's only 3. There's only 3 of these in the world. There's only 3 of the samples in the world. So the next 1,500 that come will be, a slightly different version.
You heard that, folks. You're only getting it here. Exclusive.
That's right. That's right. So A is for Africa, ancestors, abundance, and appreciating assets. B is for Black wealth. B is for showing Black love by bartering. And B is for keeping balance sheets to sustain Black businesses. C is for cowrie shells, cryptocurrency, cash flow, credit, currency, and community love. D is for dark skin, deeds, dividends, developing oneself, and living debt free. So that's like the example of the childlike part, right? We're just gonna read. We could just read that part to our children, and that's a whole book for a kid, right? But then we define some of these terms, right? So like, abundance is having an extremely large quantity of something or having more than enough. Abundance can extend to many areas of life. For example, one could have an abundance of good health or an abundant love life or social life. One could also have an abundant career or an abundance of peace or abundant amount of achievements. Having abundance in areas such as these can make us truly wealthy. Let's see. Africa is the cradle of civilization. It is the birthplace of the first humans, and also home of our ancestors. The continent has some of the world's most plentiful natural resources like diamonds, gold, and cobalt. Africa has an abundance of commodities such as coffee, oil, and sugar. And then I'll read one more. This is not my definition of black wealth that I want, so we won't give that
That's
away.
fine.
But bartering is the oldest. It's the oldest means of trade. It is a practice in which people trade goods or services. Bartering does not involve the exchange of money, but it is still valuable to all parties. A good example would be you let your cousin play your video games, and then your cousin does your chores for you. That is an exchange of goods and services. This is a great way to support each other and spread black love.
Hell yeah.
So that's a quick peek into the
I
first
love
couple
it.
pages.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
Oh, I just, again, I'm just struck by, I'm seeing how you're building a familiarity with these terms. And I think that we can only we'll only see how big of an effect that has getting these ideas, to kids at a younger age,
Mm-hmm.
just thinking about where my head was, Ninja Turtles,
Right.
Star Wars, Legos,
Mm-hmm.
I read a million books growing up because we didn't have TV, but having those concepts from that young age, it's what an advantage
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that you're giving to the kids. And I'm just curious, what the process was like for building this in this structure. I see your word flows in there for sure, and that's dope. And how did you make that decision to have all the, to have that, the letter on top with the alliteration and the words, and then those kind of sub things? What was that process like to develop that?
I mean, that's a great question. I think that was the most natural part. So obviously it was always an ABC book. So if you read B is for Black Girl, you'll see the ABCs. A is for Afro Puffs and I don't know, whatever, right? I'm not sure exactly what's in the book, but I remember that part, right? So we followed that structure originally, but then I realized some of the words that I was using needed further explanation. So I think it kind of just had happened naturally in the writing process. And then the way, pretty early, I was the way I envisioned it is this is actually two books in one. It's hard to really explain that to people. Mm-hmm. And I'm still working on my messaging around this, right? And I'm still calling it a children's book because it is. But the way that I see it and the way that I envisioned it as I started writing it is there's two different books within one. There's one that's on top is for the children. A is for for Africa and assets that appreciate. B is for woo, 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 woo. And that's one book. If you just read that part all the way through, that's a book for a child. And they just learned a lot and absorbed a lot of information. And they might have had fun with it and wanted to know what the stuff meant. But then there's another part that's really meant for the adults or for kids that are a little bit more advanced or that just love the content. And that's where we're expanding on some of these, what does this mean? And, the further you go into the book, you realize it's not just about what this means, but what does this mean for us? Mm-hmm. And some of it is instructive. I tell, hey, y'all, these are the things we should barter. You know what I'm saying? We should find ways to, exchange without having to transact in money, for example. So that's the way that I seen the book as I was creating it. And I think it is that form has been, or that structure that I kind of thought of has been expressed. You know what I'm saying? When you read it and you look at it, I think that's expressed pretty well also.
That's awesome, man. And how cool to get to be, kind of have your work integrated into this series. It seems like it's a lot of Black love focused. B is for Black Girl?
Yeah. B is for Black. Yeah. B is for Black Girl. B is for Black Boy.
So it's part of this series. Mm-hmm. Are those books all written by different authors, or are those the same authors?
So it's co-written by two twins who are they're my publishers. Their names are Channing and Chelsea. They're identical twins. Mm-hmm. They were the twins, and said as far as the twins when it came to women, that was them. The girls, they're the twins, right? In my city, right?
Yeah, I saw them in the video that you guys released.
Right, facts. So. Beautiful young ladies in a lot of different ways, right? And they co-wrote both the B is for Black Boy and B is for Black Girl books. And this is actually their first book that they have published outside of their own books. They self-published their books, and it's their first book that they've published outside of the books that they've written. So, you know, I'm not how that series develops. I think it's just a matter of time to kind of see how it goes. But I am grateful to be a part of what they've already created. I'm grateful to do it together more than anything. Like, I think that I was telling somebody that I think it would have been somewhat empty if I just went at this alone, versus doing what I've been telling people to do, is find ways that when I make money, you make money, and when you make money, I make money. To me, that's the simplest form of group economics, and I'm glad that we were able to demonstrate that as we created this piece of art as well.
It's what's the La Russell term? Cook together, eat together.
Cook together, eat. So that's my guy right there, man. That's what I'm about. Me and you have the first time we met, we bonded over La Russell. I think I had his hoodie on.
Yeah, you were rocking one of his fits.
Yeah. So yeah, man, cook
he's
together,
doing.
eat together.
I mean, he's kind of just. I feel like that dude is just revolutionizing so much in the way of thinking about work. I was listening to a snippet of him on a podcast, just talking about, you know, the model of investing in artists at the ground level, like, you know, like venture capitalism for the arts, you know, talking about, like, think about if you could have gotten in on Jay-Z on the ground floor, you know, you can get it on me.
Facts.
And just what I've seen, like, with the different things that he's playing around with as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, you know, really trusting himself and really valuing himself as a creator, and inviting his community to interact, you know, and to share in his abundance and in his success.
Nah, absolutely. I think he will be one of the best case studies, if not the best case study of an artist impacting his consumer. I think he will be the best case study of that in 10 years. I think up there with, like, I even told people, I even said it publicly, once he allowed people to purchase a percentage of the royalties from his streaming, like a percentage of I think that's the term, royalties, right? When he did that, I said, this is the most important thing that a rapper has done since Nipsey Hussle opened the Marathon store. And I stand by that. I stand by that statement. I think in 10 years.
What was the Marathon store? I never heard that story.
Oh, that was basically Nipsey Hussle's clothing store.
Okay.
A couple cool things about it is it was in his neighborhood. That's actually where he got killed at, was right in front of his store, which is unfortunate. But it was in his neighborhood. They had just purchased the whole shopping center that the store resided in. And they had other stores that they have activated within that shopping center as well. So, like, they had a fish, like a you know, healthy fish market or I don't know, like a food spot, right? A restaurant, but it was based on, like, fish. They had activated a barber shop that they all activated in that location. They ended up buying the whole thing as well. And, you know, it's so many layered significances to the Marathon store and where it was located. It was actually the first, what they consider, a smart store. Him and Idris Sandu, which is a real cool tech entrepreneur, created what they termed a smart store, and they say it was the first smart store in existence. I mean, they had, like, technology integrated into the store that like proprietary technology that has never been created outside of that particular store. Okay. So everything, he is the case study, right?
Do you have an example, like, of what kind of
technology? So one of the pieces of technology was like on he would have tags on his clothes, right? And you could, like, put up a barcode to the tag and stream music, or like stream a music video or something like that.
That had the piece in it, or was the piece associated to the music somehow?
I'm not. It was on the piece. So, like, one shirt might have one piece of art, another shirt might have another piece of art. Okay. He might say, "Hey, I dropped a new video today. The only way you could watch it is to go to this T-shirt and stream it."
Oh,
right?
That's dope.
Exactly.
That's really cool.
Yeah. It was a dynamic situation. Yeah. Now we're starting to see different technology where you could do similar things, but or just imagine saying, all right, y'all, we're dropping a world premiere of this music video, but you have to go to a specific location to go watch it. You go to the location, you scan your barcode, and you know what I'm saying, or whatever, and now you can watch it.
That's awesome.
So, like, the problem that they were solving, or one of the problems, or one of the applications of problems that they were solving was like like bootlegging music. You know what I'm saying? People been trying to figure out forever, how do we stop people from bootlegging music? And that was one of the utilities or use cases for that particular piece of technology. But I think the technology is great, but I think even more than that was like, it was like Wakanda. You know what I'm saying? Like it was a little piece of Wakanda where we used our own genius, and we didn't sell our, like oftentimes when we do have geniuses, we basically sell that genius to the highest bidder. We don't take hold of or control our intellectual property.
Yeah.
We don't reap the most benefits off of our own intellectual property, and they did a beautiful job of doing that. Now what LaRussell's doing, man, it's crazy because Nas just dropped the NFT where you purchase it and you get a percentage of streaming royalties, right, by purchasing NFTs. And LaRussell did that a month or two ago already. And I'm also happen to be a proud owner of like 10% of one of his songs, and like
dope.
5 or 15% of one song and 5% of another. I'm actually also gonna buy the gold card. I'm gonna buy it on Monday, man. I gotta get my
What's the gold card?
So he just dropped, LaRussell just dropped something called a gold card where it basically grants you access to any show he ever does, access to like exclusive merchandise, like just all types of utility. And the cool part about all of this is he's letting people basically pick their price, or at least give an offer. Like, I don't know what he'll say to any offer, but he fills the offers and he says yes or no. Send the money here, and we'll send you out the gold card. But it's a genius. He's a genius, bro.
It gets back to like one of the fundamentals of the bartering, which where my men went when you read it in the book, which is, I feel like we've lost something in our culture, removing ourselves so much from the act of bartering. Like one of the things I've learned going to some other countries, like I love the haggle. I love like having to show up and being incentivized to communicate well and to be personable and to be charismatic and charming. And I think that we used to have that more in our society where if you went to market, like depending on like how you could perform, your price is going to be drastically different. And having traveled in certain parts of the world where that's still in effect, people assume it's like this adversarial thing to barter, but it's really not. It's really a cooperative, like, can we be homies for 5 minutes? Because you're going to get the homie price if we can.
Right.
And if not, if you're an asshole, well, you're going to pay more.
Facts.
And that is inspiring in itself. And it often I find leads to a greater level of satisfaction, like post-transaction. When you feel like you've gotten a good price, it's kind of like this idea that you were talking about where in the system of bartering where both parties get to benefit from the exchange. And you look at like a word, I'm not an anti-capitalist, I'm pro-capitalism, but a lot of people have taken that word capital to mean that you're capitalizing on someone, that it needs to be an unequal, transaction or exchange of value. Someone's is to greater advantage.
Somebody's winning.
Yeah, right. They're a winner and a loser.
And the reason that is because that's what it's been historically in our country. I think like the downside of capitalism is extraction of resources, right? And a lot of resources are money, labor, all types of things, right? But I do think there is beauty in,
or maybe the exploitation of it.
Facts.
Even more, because extraction's not inherently bad, right?
I don't
know. How do you find extraction?
The way I define extraction, where you take something that is not yours, basically. Okay. Like I mean, like
theft or
I mean, it is a form of theft, right? Yeah. Like extracting is like pulling resources from one place and so people in another place could benefit from it. So like extracting oil from your own land is not inherently a bad. Well, maybe oil is not the best.
Well, like plants extract nutrients from the soil, right? Or we extract nutrients from food that we eat,
but they give back,
right?
You know what I'm saying? The plants give back, like they give oxygen. So that's now we're talking about an ecosystem. So extraction is the way I define extraction is one-sided, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I'm not disagreeing. I'm just trying to get to a place where I can understand how you're using the term, so I can understand your point better. Yeah,
and I'm not sure if I'm using it correctly, but that's the way I'm thinking about it. Where it's one sided, one person. Yeah, one person is one group is winning and another one isn't. Yeah, right.
This kind of unequal exploitation or extraction of without paying back into the system.
Exactly. So I think that is a cool way to approach, what we have going on going forward, just like the pay what you can model. Like, what can you contribute? Because if you give people opportunity, like anytime I'm selling my shirts in person, it's to pay what you can. Like, what is this transaction worth to you, to you? I've had people give me $150 for a shirt, and I've had people give me $10 for a shirt, and I'm okay with that because it always kind of balances itself out as long as people, are genuine and giving what they can.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the sliding scale for creatives and for everybody. I think that's a great tool in addressing the inequality of our society, because we need to, I'm dependent, regardless of which side of the political spectrum you're on. I don't see us getting to any sort of ideal system without a massive redistribution of wealth. And we can argue all day about how that's going to happen, but I think that by offering access and not denying access to people without the material means, you are living by your values. You are creating this brighter future that we all want to live in. And I know you are strapped for time, so I want to respect. You got other things in the pot, but just before we wrap it up, one more time, just share with people like how they can connect with you, how they can find you, and also like the release date of your book and how people can buy it if they want to buy it. Right.
So the release date is the pre-order is open right now. So
how can people find that?
So they could find it at bisforblackwealth.com. It's spelled just like it sounds. B is
hold that book up one more time too.
bisforblackwealth.com. And you can find the book. You can find me. The best place to find me is Instagram. Instagram is AntWalker33, ANT Walker33. You could also find, if you're interested in some merch, I don't have any on right now because I wear other people's stuff too, but finance-friday.com. But if you go to my Instagram, it's like a centralized location where you could kind of find everything, all the links that you need to keep up with me and to support what I have going on. I have a whole lot of cool stuff in the pipeline for this book.
And just say, because I wanted this to be a standalone episode, what is Finance Friday really quick?
Yeah. So Finance Friday is kind of the parent company to Biz for Black Wealth. It is an educational company where I educate I educate on entrepreneurship, business, and finance to the masses. It started as that and turned into a clothing brand as well. So we have some real cool like clothes with messages on it and stuff. So those are my two businesses currently that I'm actively working on and working in. And I feel like I was saying something. I was saying something important. So we have a lot of cool things that are happening with the book or in motion. We have I don't know how much I want to talk about it, but basically we're going to have some NFTs associated with the book. We'll probably have a crowdfund on the blockchain as well that's associated with the book. May have a crowdfund off the blockchain. I haven't 100% decided yet, but one way to redistribute wealth to me is to kind of take our money out of the traditional system or at least a portion of our money out of the traditional system and convert some of that money to cryptocurrency. I think it's a lot of power in the system that is and the system that is being created over there on the blockchain. So, yeah, a bunch of cool stuff happening, a lot of good education. Anybody that pre-orders my book actually has access to an 8-week course teaching people how to code, right? So it'll probably be like 8th or 9th grade and older, like as far as being able to access that, but you'll have a free ticket whether you want to come or you want to, use that to give to somebody else that could benefit from that. Because I just feel like the central to like one of the most important skill sets going forward is going to be coding and developing, and even right now. So
what language?
I believe it's solidity.
Okay.
Am I saying it right?
I don't know.
I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah. I'm not a coder, but
the brother that's doing it is a dope coder. He codes both on the blockchain and off. He has a lot of cool experience. So I'm excited to kind of bring his info, like what he knows, to the masses. So we'll get a cool. It'll be an 8-week course, and people will just, like I said, your ticket is the book. So as long as you have the book, you have access to this 8-week coding course.
And all that, people can find out all about that at the website for the book?
Yes, all of that is at BizForBlackWealth.com. Some of that information is still, some of this is exclusive. So like the NFT projects, the crowdsourcing on the blockchain, I haven't really announced that just yet. This is my first time officially announcing it, but all of that stuff will kind of come out as we go.
Gotcha.
So stay tuned.
And that'll be, people can check in on your Instagram too, I'm sure, to get those
Instagram, the website will get updated as we go and all those types of things. So yeah, just tap in. You'll find somewhere in our ecosystem that could be helpful and contributory to you for sure. Just tap on in.
Well, brother, dude, I appreciate you so much.
Appreciate you, brother Bart.
Thank you so much for coming on, and I just love to see you thriving at what you're doing, and I'm totally in support of it, and just looking forward to seeing all the great things you're going to keep creating, man. Thanks a lot.
Appreciate it. I'm inspired by you as well, bro. When we first met, I was like, yeah, man, I want to start a podcast. And you were telling me about your podcast, and I'm like, yeah, that's dope. And I was asking a bunch of questions. So to see you in doing that work and to having had an opportunity to kind of be involved, has been super refreshing and super beneficial to me in a lot of different ways. So I just appreciate you for the work you're doing, for the structure you created, the platform that you're creating.
Hell yeah.
It's gonna benefit a lot of people over time. So thank you, brother.
Hell yeah. Well, let me know when you're ready, and I'll help you get set up. I believe everybody needs to have one of these. So
yeah, I agree, bro. I don't know when I'm at this point. I'm like, man, that's looking further and further in the future. But one day
I'll be making a guide eventually.
Super dope.
When we start the Space Art podcast, that's our episode 0 is how to make a podcast. So,
super dope. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna lean in when it's time though, for sure, bro.
Well, have a good one, man. Thanks again for coming by.
Appreciate you, bro.
Peace.